If anyone had written this for a script in Hollywood, the Hollywood people would have gone, no way.
The Menendez case is one of the most infamous criminal trials in America. The brothers accused of the murder of their wealthy parents in Beverly Hills.
It was like an incredible soap opera.
Jose was a successful businessman. Kitty was the caring mother. Two boys, emblematic of wealth and privilege. Why would you kill your parents?
As the prosecutor, I knew it was plain old greed.
There was a media spectacle from the beginning, so we were not the ones who told the story of our life. We looked like the perfect family, but behind the walls, something very wrong was happening.
What did he do to you?
I'm sorry.
Now there's the TikTok movement to free the Menendez.
There's a new generation that supports the brothers.
People are looking at the case with fresh eyes.
It's don't commit this crime for money. And there's people that believe I shouldn't spend the rest of my life in prison.
That judge was determined he was going to get a conviction.
These kids went through some horrible things.
I'm telling you now, it's all fake. And if you don't know it's fake, that pisses me off.
There is no evidence saying they're not guilty.
We would much rather lose the murder trial than talk about the sick secrets of the family.
Yo, what's good? We're back with another one.
It's showtime.
On August 20th, 1989, Lyle and Eric Menendez returned to their Beverly Hills home from a trip to the movies and the Taste of LA festival. What they found was an unthinkable horror. They found their parents, Jose and Kitty Menendez, brutally slain in their living room. At least that's what they wanted people to believe had happened.
We're really gonna do this?
In reality, the Menendez boys, in response to what they claim was years of torture and abuse on their parents' part, had taken their parents' lives themselves.
I think one of the Beverly Hills detectives described it as one of the most brutal crime scene he had ever seen in his life.
I've been in this business for over 33 years, and I've heard of very few murders that were more savage than this one was.
Jose Menendez, a former top executive at RCA Records, and his wife, Kitty, had been shot multiple times at close range with a shotgun.
Fucking hell, that's savage.
They had it coming, bro.
Yeah, we definitely can't say that. Remember, this is for entertainment purposes only.
Milton Anderson, Kitty's older brother, still remembers receiving the news.
My brother called me and he said that Kitty and Jose were dead. I loved her. Sister Kitty was a very ambitious gal. She was a very beautiful woman.
Jose Menendez was the self-made millionaire. He was very driven, very demanding. The prosecution's theory was they got tired of their lives being micromanaged. They wanted to spend the money the way they wanted to spend the money. The way that they acted was not like, oh my goodness, my parents are dead. It was soulless.
It was strictly greed from day one.
You believe they wanted a portion of the money?
They wanted it all. I don't believe that Jose or Kitty would do any of the things that they were accused of. Jose was changing his will, and that's when they went out and bought the shotgun.
A couple was sitting around watching TV when their adult sons came in with shotguns and slaughtered them. What did these parents do to deserve that?
You had to shoot them both so brutally, you gotta ask what they did.
He was a record executive, bro. What do you think he did?
They were able to disguise this fact until early 1990, when a guilt-stricken Eric confessed his and Lyle's heinous crime to Dr. L. Jerome Oziel, a therapist who had been hired by Jose.
How can I make you feel better, Eric? I came here so that you tell me I'm not a bad person. Tell me I'm not a bad person.
You killed your mom and dad, Eric.
The therapist foolishly spilled the beans to Judalon Smith, his mistress. When the doctor refused to leave his wife for Smith, she used his secret against him. This meant informing the police that, among other allegations of misconduct, he was in possession of material that incriminated the Menendez brothers for their parents' murder. General public sentiment regarding the brothers was largely unfavorable, with skeptics claiming that the Menendez brothers appeared smug and arrogant in court. They also pointed to their $700,000 spending spree after their parents' murder as proof of their status as spoiled rich kids, only in it for the substantial inheritance they stood to receive.
And as far as transportation goes?
Well, you have the limousine.
Right, but for both of us.
You're asking for a second limousine?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Mate, you sure they ain't lying?
Yeah, bro. They're just a pair of dickheads.
You called the police. You pretended that you hadn't done it. You cried. You went off on a spending spree. I mean, we all read about it. You bought Rolexes, you bought cars, you didn't say, oh my God, what have I done, and turn yourself in.
Well,
there are people, a great number of people, who think that you two are spoiled brats, that you are evil, that you are monsters. What do you say to them?
that's not who I am, but I can't defend that. Because I came from a family of wealth, that doesn't make me spoiled.
I would be surprised if anybody that was present at the trial and saw the whole thing rather than snippets on the news would feel that.
A jury found you both guilty.
Right, but I don't think you aren't guilty because they found you spoiled.
Or evil.
Or evil.
Just a normal, I'm just a normal kid.
Oh, Eric, you're a normal kid who killed your parents.
Fucking hell, that interview style's a bit much.
She thought they were lying, bro. They're rich and they rob people's houses for fun.
What the fuck?
Have you forgiven yourself?
I don't think it's possible.
Lyle, are you at any kind of peace?
More so than maybe Eric, because at this point, for some reason, well before the verdict, I was resigned to bad things. And I have, I think, found a place where I can look forward and try to have hope and share myself more with people. And
Hope of what?
Hope of living a life that I can be more proud of.
How in prison?
You're confined, but there must be, even just in writing, people that need help.
If you can help them and convince a single person that has been through our situation that the last thing in the world they should do is act out violently, then you find meaning in your life.
Of course you can have a life to be proud of in prison. Loads of people have done amazing things in prison.
Loads of their family testified, bro.
Most of the Menendez family members who knew about the sexual abuse believe the brothers should have been convicted of manslaughter, not murder.
Lyle testified that his father began molesting him when he was only 6 years old and that it stopped when he was 8. Eric testified that the abuse never stopped for him. Brian Anderson, a cousin of Lyle and Eric, testified about severe physical abuse that they suffered at the hands of Jose. Diane Vandermolen testified about the physical and verbal abuse by both Jose and Kitty. Andy Cano, the brother's cousin, testified that Eric confided to him that Jose was molesting him. Cano testified also that Eric always had bruises on his body. Several witnesses testified that when Jose was alone with one of his sons in the bedroom, no one was allowed to go near the bedroom. Dr. William Vicari, who I mentioned before, testified that Eric suffered from an anxiety disorder that could affect his mental state. Dr. John Wilson testified that Eric suffered from battered person syndrome, depression, PTSD.
How did they not get manslaughter?
No one believed them, bro.
I learned from the time I was a small boy to hold in pain and not express it physically.
Regardless of personal beliefs, It seems safe to say that, as described by Lyle and Eric Menendez, the abuse they claim to have endured was soul-crushing, mind-numbing, and everything in between. For a disturbing, concrete example of this, look once more to Eric's own words as part of A&E's Eric Tells All docu-miniseries.
It came all the way down to not being allowed to cry, not being allowed to express pain. And what would happen when I expressed pain, or I would get hit for this.
The younger brother claims that Jose's boys were forbidden from demonstrating any kind of emotion, and that he, quote, trained them to repress their pain and inner turmoil. As such, Jose allegedly forced Lyle to strike Eric's, quote, pressure points until he was in agony. As Eric describes, any resistance only led to harsher treatment.
One time, he felt Lyle was holding back on him. Told Lyle harder, and Lyle whispered, "I'm sorry." And I screamed out.
Yeah, that's horrible.
It gets much worse, bro.
Some of their family members, like Alan Anderson, believed that they were justified in the killings.
I know they did what they did because they were in fear of their life.
Another cousin, Diane Vandermolen, gave similar testimony. And she also recounted a conversation she says she had with Lyle when he was 8.
He proceeded to indicate to me by touching himself down and saying that his dad and him had been touching each other down there.
And what did you do?
I went and got Kitty and told her what was going on.
And what happened when Kitty came down?
She didn't believe me.
Andy Cano, yet another cousin, also took the stand and testified about a conversation he says he had with Eric when Eric was about 13.
He told me his father was massaging his... He told me never to reveal it to anybody.
The mum knew and didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, bro. That's why they smoked her.
He explained to me that these massages that his father was giving him were beginning to hurt.
And do you remember whether or not you understood what that meant, or?
I definitely didn't understand.
He didn't tell you anything about tacks or needles or ropes or anything
No,
like
he
that?
didn't.
Were you familiar with a nickname that your cousin Eric used to refer to himself at about this same time?
Yes, I did.
And what was that nickname?
It was Hurt Man.
Jesus, this is getting dark.
I told you, bro. That dad was a monster.
And did he also use a knife at any time?
Yes, he would. He had this wooden kitchen knife that he would use to just... He wouldn't be doing anything with sex at that point, though. He would just have me sit on the back of the bed. He would put a towel under my legs, and he would just cut my thighs with the knife.
And do you have a scar that is still visible on your thigh from when he did that?
Yes.
Which thigh is it?
My left thigh.
And how long is this scar?
It's about that long.
And do you recall that that's something that was done during one of these episodes?
Yes.
That's fucked up, man.
It's gonna get darker, bro. Leave a comment on this video for a chance to win some of our merch.
We pick a winner at the end of every episode, so make sure you stick around.
We don't do sponsored segments on this show, so if you want to support us, go grab some merch or become a member.
Members get an extra episode every week, and there's a bunch of episodes ready to watch now.
Let's get back to the video, bro.
Eric and Lyle are my two cousins that are the children of Kitty and Jose. I lived with them for over a year, and that would have been in 1982 and 83. That his dad would say, "Go on upstairs to your room, Eric. I'll be up in a minute." And it's like, all of a sudden, all these little pieces of the puzzle are just falling into place.
Yeah.
I remember that, and all of a sudden, it makes sense.
Why the fuck's she eating pancakes?
Eric would be fine going upstairs, and Jose would go upstairs to be with Eric. And he would be up there for a while. I mean, long enough for us to make the dinner, long enough for us to eat it, and then to clean the kitchen. But then Jose would come back downstairs and say, Eric isn't feeling well. He's not going to eat right now.
Right.
I'll give him his dinner later. Well, I've never realized that until Eric said what he did, and it's just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Now, and I remember this time we were in the house and Eric had to have lemon.
Oh, yeah.
And he wasn't being a spoiled brat about it or anything. He was just desperate.
I remember the lemon thing.
You
several
do?
times. Oh, yeah.
And he would just fall apart. He was just like, oh my God.
When we were at my dad's in Texas, he had to have the lemon, and my dad made fun of him. When he explained why he had to have it, it just...
He said it was the same way with ketchup.
Yes. Because Eric was made to swallow this. He found out that if he used a lot of ketchup or lemons, it would make the taste in his mouth go away. That just became a way of life.
That's unbelievable. Whose decision was it for them to be eating pancakes in that scene?
Forget about the fucking pancakes, bro.
I just don't know how they could eat while talking about it.
How vile all this was going on in our lives that we weren't aware of it, and Eric never told anybody.
Right. I just never, now.
Well, our mind doesn't go that way.
No.
I don't know if they ever would have told anybody what they were enduring. It wasn't a thing that boys wanted to let anybody know, that they were having sex with their father.
No one would ever go down that hall and go in that room and interrupt or see what's going on or anything, including Kitty. They are such good people, and they were tortured. Their dad tortured them, and their mom let it happen. And didn't run interference or stop anything or defend them.
Basically, no one believed them because they were boys.
The media made them look like liars, bro. So the jury didn't want to seem gullible.
Did you see any indication in Eric Menendez's medical records of an injury to his throat area?
Yes, the direct quote is hurt posterior pharynx, uvula, and soft palate. Senior emergency room, Princeton Medical Center. Healing well, symptomatic treatment. Actually, it was seen the day before. This is the follow-up note.
And is that consistent with, could that be caused by child sexual abuse, in your opinion?
Yes, could be.
They should dig him up and him again.
Jesus, Ted. Does seem crazy that no one believed them, though.
Way down here on the wall, that the naked picture of Eric shows up, and then a picture of Mrs. Menendez's favorite thing.
Almost as amazing as the fact that these pictures were taken was that these pictures were saved. You will see the envelope that they came in, and you will see the negatives, and you will see the original small photos, and you will see Kitty Menendez's handwriting that was on the envelope these photos were in, which says Eric's birth date, November 1976. She saw these photographs, and she kept them.
Told you, bro. She was in on it.
Yeah, that's vile.
Kitty made it very clear that she did not go down the hallway to listen or go near that door.
If I would have ignored my aunt, or would have ignored Kitty, and just went up to that door and knocked.
I hated it. I hated it.
I believed him. Straightforward. I believed him. Because of the noises I heard coming out of the room, the fact that Kitty would not allow me to go down the hallway to find out what was going on, how I wasn't allowed to see the boys right after they came out of the bedroom, all these different things just clicked. And that's when I really said to myself, you know what? That son of a bitch was actually doing what they say he was doing back in that bedroom.
More people must have known about this.
Everyone knew he was a piece of shit, bro.
To me, the most telling thing was that in the entire trial, there was not one witness, not a family member, not a friend, who would come forward and say, Jose Menendez was a great guy. They never could find anyone to say that.
He would manage to have the right words to ridicule and intimidate and humiliate and manipulate anyone that was present so he could control.
He was the harshest person I'd ever met.
What was wrong, in your opinion, with the way that Jose Menendez wanted these kids coached?
I thought it was cruel because they had to physically suffer.
As we presented for 6 weeks of relative after relative and friend after friend and associate of the family testifying about the traumas that they witnessed, the terror that they saw me go through. And these were terrible stories.
I've got a feeling there's more people involved in this.
Yeah, people from the record label, bro.
Dinner party at the Menendez home. Jose told his guests he'd brought back a VHS tape from a trip to Brazil.
And I have to show you guys this because it's so unique. And so he puts it in, and I don't remember the name.
He said the film showed adults engaging in sex acts in front of children.
And we saw a few seconds of it, a few minutes. And we made excuses. A lot of us stood up and said, we have to leave.
What was wrong with people in the 90s, bro?
Yeah, imagine if you were at someone's house now and they showed you a video like that. You'd have to do something about it.
One thing that we have asked the judge to do is to limit the so-called abuse excuse, to limit evidence that has nothing to do with this case.
And so all the rulings from the first trial changed in the state's favor. There were various instructional issues. There was expert testimony that wasn't permitted in the second trial. The sexual abuse evidence that had been admitted at the first trial for the defense was no longer admissible.
The judge has ruled that he will not allow the brothers to call all of their family and friends as witnesses, curtailing the defense's case.
And in fact, what they didn't allow the jury to hear made it worse because the defense evidence that was presented was so trivial. So we don't hear that Lyle, when he was 8 years old, told Diane that his father was touching his penis. We don't hear that Lyle, when he was 12 or 13, wrote an essay about a father put on death row for molesting his child. What we do hear is that his father didn't put a Band-Aid on his knee. The prosecutor was able to stand up in closing and say, you've heard no evidence of sexual abuse. And the prosecutor was right, but only because he had excluded the evidence.
Abuse excuse. Even the terminology's fucked up. How's that got nothing to do with the case?
It's bullshit, bro. They stopped half the family testifying.
At the second trial, prosecutors placed more of a focus on the brutality of the crime, and they painted Jose as a restrained, loving father, someone incapable of molesting his children. Prosecutors referred to the brothers' defense as the abuse excuse. In the first trial, the defense called more than 50 witnesses. This time, they called about half.
It wasn't that they didn't want to present them. They were not allowed.
The jury deliberated for days, and then...
The verdicts are in the retrial of Eric and Lyle Menendez.
Guilty of first-degree murder.
I hugged my brother, we cried.
I was not happy at all.
At the jury's recommendation, the brothers were sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
If it was just one of them, the brutality of the shooting would hold weight, but the chances of both of them being that sick is slim. Like, who's going to shoot both their parents just for money?
They fucking hated him, bro.
I just know that I was totally pissed off through the whole thing. Eric and Lyle were not victims. And they will say, oh, we were scared of Dad. Well, then go to the cops, for Christ's sake. I mean, come on, give me a break. All they have to do is go out and work as baristas, leave the house and say, Dad, we've had it with you.
Yeah, it's easy for her to say, isn't it? She hasn't been abused since she was 6 years old.
She's cold as ice, bro.
Here's the thing. I was a sex crimes prosecutor. I knew that people got buggered by their fathers. And to turn it around and to use it as an excuse for killing your parents was just and your mother. I was so angry at these people.
I don't think she should have been a sex crimes prosecutor.
People did have reason to believe they were lying, bro.
That's besides the point. She says our mother like it's a normal mum. If people have been doing that to you, you're not going to look at them like a normal kid looks at their mum.
There were things that had been developed since the first trial that would have damaged his credibility a great deal.
Prosecutors said they had new evidence that Lyle had asked a friend and a former girlfriend to fabricate testimony. Lyle admits to 48 Hours that he did do that, but says he later withdrew those requests. Because Lyle didn't take the stand, his cousin Diane Vandermolen was prohibited from testifying about that conversation she says she had with Lyle when he was 8, in which she says Lyle told her that his father was touching him. The jury did still hear from cousin Andy Cano about that similar conversation he claimed to have had with a 13-year-old Eric, but the prosecution attacked his credibility.
The state's position was that Andy was a liar.
And when cousin Alan Anderson took the stand, prosecutors attacked his credibility too, bringing up the fact that Lyle Menendez gave him money after the crime. Anderson says it was to help pay for a medical procedure.
He didn't say anything like, well, if I go to court, it was just straight up between him and I, him being a nice cousin, knowing I was in financial bind.
Paying off the cousins probably wasn't a good idea, bro.
Yeah, but even if you're innocent, you'd try anything to get off death row, right?
Judy Ho is a neuropsychologist who specializes in childhood sex abuse trauma. Dr. Ho is also a 48 Hours consultant. We asked her to review the case.
I definitely think that our society has just become more knowledgeable about trauma and the impact of sexual trauma.
Dr. Ho says research shows that just because the brothers delayed reporting abuse, it doesn't mean they made it up.
That's all very consistent with people who have been through trauma and maybe feel like it was even their own fault in some ways, or they're ashamed of the trauma.
They're 18 and 21. Why couldn't they leave?
Right. Well, certainly there was a path that they could have taken is to try to get away from the family, but it sounds like even at that age, they were very much under the control of their father still. I think that oftentimes what people are not aware of is that trauma completely rewires the brain. They probably did think at one point it was either them or their parents, that it was a fight or flight conditioning that had come up.
Makes you wonder how many men have been abused and just never come forward.
The media's made it hard for men to talk about, bro.
The idea back then was, A, dads don't molest their children, and if by chance it happened, these are 18 and 21-year-old kids, they're strapping young men, they just leave. And both those, I think, are undercut in what we know today.
What we thought was acceptable or possible 35 years ago, we now know was a very limited view. And I think that's part of the reason that a younger generation understands that and gets it. I just think that anytime you've been through that kind of trauma, to now see that kind of society has caught up with you, I've said this before, if they were the Menendez sisters, they wouldn't be in custody.
It's true, right?
Yeah, the idea that a grown man can't be is ridiculous. Terry Crews was abused, and there's barely anyone on the planet that could hold him down.
The brothers did in fact have 2 separate trials with 2 juries in the first and 1 jury in the second. The show suggests that when it came to the first trial, the jury was split based on gender lines, and that is actually true. Give you an example, all votes for first-degree murder for Eric were reportedly cast by men. The female jurors were leaning towards not guilty.
I'm just really curious about the homophobia that you talk about.
Well, that ended up being the #1 issue that we discussed in the trial. In closing arguments, Lester Kuriyama, the prosecutor, threw out a theory that the whole problem in the family was that Eric was gay, and that was how he knew how to describe homosexual acts. And that a prosecutor's closing arguments is not considered evidence. There was no evidence of that. But the men grabbed a hold of that and would not let go. I also think that they were feeling the pressure, public pressure, of not being wimps. They were being macho about it. and not wanting to be seen as taken in as gullible. And that's what the press painted the women as.
Sad these guys are still inside after 35 years.
It's looking like they might get out, bro.
Some years after Andy passed away, Marta, his mother, found a letter that Eric had written to Andy some months before the shootings. If you don't mind if I'll read it. Mom isn't doing too good. It's like she's here physically, but mentally, she's just like gone, if you know what I mean. She freaks out over nothing. I feel bad for her. I don't know why she puts up with Dad's shit. And this is where it gets particularly interesting. So now I'm stuck here alone. I've been trying to avoid Dad. It's still happening, Andy, but it's worse for me now. I can't explain it. He's so overweight that I can't stand to see him. I never know when it's going to happen, and it's driving me crazy. Every night I stay up thinking he might come in. I need to put it out of my mind. I know what you said before, but I'm afraid. You just don't know Dad like I do. He's crazy. He's warned me 100 times about telling anyone, especially Lyle.
This has got to get him out, surely.
People are saying she planted the letter, bro.
Fucking hell, they probably just don't want to be wrong.
There's more evidence, bro.
Former Menudo member Roy Rossello, now 54, in a sworn affidavit filed just last year, he claims he went to Jose Menendez's home in the early 80s at the direction of the band's then manager, Edgardo Diaz. Rossello would have been between 14 and 15 years old at the time. He says he drank a glass of wine, then felt like he had no control over his body.
Jose Menendez me dijo, toma este vino, es un vino carísimo, y tómate toda la taza. Después que yo me la tomé, yo me comencé a sentir un cansancio, un peso. Yo no podía más moverme. A partir de ese momento, yo solamente veía cosas como que desenfocadas. Alguien me empujó, alguien me cargó, alguien tried to push me. Y yo caminé un pasillo bien largo. Y había un cuarto. Yo no podía reaccionar porque eso me estaba tomando cuenta de mi cuerpo. Me drogaron. Y después de eso, yo amanecí en el hotel. ¿Cómo yo llegué al hotel? Yo no sé. Pero cuando yo fui al baño, I was bleeding. Y yo estuve una semana con un dolor terrible. Con un dolor que no podía más, no me podía ni mover. Yo me acuerdo que yo tenía que simular que yo no estaba con dolor, pero el dolor estaba tomando cuenta de mi vida. Era un dolor terrible.
That was brave of him to talk about it.
Yeah, bro. It's just a shame it wasn't 35 years ago.
Rossello, along with other former Menudo members, have long accused Edgardo Diaz, the band's one-time manager, of sexual abuse. Diaz has always denied the allegations, and no charges have been filed against him. The Los Angeles Police Department is currently investigating a specific incident in which Rossello alleges Diaz raped him at this hotel in the 1980s.
Fucking hell, they gotta get this guy too.
It's always the record executives, bro.
Sexual abuse, physical abuse is relevant to your state of mind, and state of mind is the key in determining whether something's murder or whether something's manslaughter. What this evidence does is it puts you back in the situation that they were in with the first trial, that there was corroboration for the abuse.
I try not to be defined by that one night. That's sort of a lifelong journey. Not to be defined by that one night.
I hope they get out.
It's looking promising, bro.
It was so rewarding. I mean, they are incredible people. They've done amazing things in prison. They're working on this green space project to try and make prisons more like college campuses, which is how it's done in Norway, which I found very impressive and inspiring. And I heard a lot of other incarcerated individuals' stories. We sat in this big circle, and what was interesting is they all came from dysfunctional families. And so I've never been inside like an actual prison. Obviously, we shot some of our scenes in a prison, but I'd never been with actual incarcerated individuals. And it was really so inspiring to see them as like humans. They really were humanized for me, and it was beautiful. And you know, I got to meet Eric and look him in the eye and tell him that I believe him and that I did everything I could to portray him as accurately and as authentically as possible. It's not to condone violence, and they definitely needed to serve time. I don't disagree with that, but it's been 35 years, and had they been convicted of manslaughter versus first-degree murder, they would have been out a long time ago. And so, you know, I think that the time is up, and I want to bring them home.
It's like the UK post office scandal. There's got to be a TV drama series for anyone to notice.
People don't give a shit until they see it on TV, bro.
Lyle and Eric operate above the population, and they move like politicians, not in a bad way, but they're very much hyper aware of the impact of their arrival and what that means and their influence. You know, they got the Secretary of Corrections on speed dial. Some of them were COs on the yard. Eric had a lot of groups that he was founding. He would found there was no anger management group. He would create it and find a staff member willing to be the facilitator and get the cops to sign off on it, the warden to sign off on it, get a space for it. And now he can handing out certificates. He's like, man, people need this shit in their records when they go to board. So between Dooney and the Menendez brothers, they were the first ones to start allowing me to understand that this shit could go in my file. Dang. And so that's why I was butt naked with nothing in my file really to show for, you know, Dr. Lear had to look for that shit. And all of a sudden I'm building studios on the yard now with permission of the fucking warden. You were
sneaking around, it was contraband, and now you got permission.
And now I'm building a fucking studio for anybody.
Anybody who's locked up.
If you're staying out of trouble, this is what you got to be doing.
You could get studio time.
You could get studio time. And a podcast on that yard. We were able to do it.
Wow.
They did so much good stuff. They got a good case for time served.
I think they're going to get out, right?
One of the things we've supplied is the family, through their lawyer, Brian Friedman, has signed a letter urging the DA to resentence them. And 24, fully 24 of the family members, including siblings and cousins and nieces and nephews, have all asked for a resentencing in this case. They're doing great work while being incarcerated. I can't think of two more exemplary people with very little hope who still continue to do massively good work. I think first and foremost is putting together a life on the outside that they have not had.
What I want to make very clear, we have not conceded one way or the other. We're not saying that there was anything wrong with the original trial.
This guy sounds like Kermit the Frog.
We are reviewing the information, but I think it's also important that we recognize that both men and women can be the victims of sexual assault.
We filed the habeas in May of last year, and we've been doing all kinds of work in getting the district attorney's office materials and things that they may or may not have known about. And they've, to their credit, they've been taking it very seriously. So I'm hopeful that at the end of the day, they make a decision this month, as Mr. Gascon said he would, and I'm hopeful that they're released. I hope to celebrate Thanksgiving with them.
They could be out next month, bro. But we'll have to save that for next time.
Hold up, Ted. We got to do this week's giveaway.
Let's do this, bro. It's Jim Spector, bro.
Hey. Jim, let us know if you'd like a t-shirt or a mug, mate, and we'll get it sent straight out to you.
Leave a comment on this video for a chance to win next week.
Yeah, big thanks to everyone who's already ordered some merch.
Send us a pic so we can put it in a video.
And as always, thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next one.
Come and join these guys in the members only episode on Wednesday, bro.